there are some people who don't like it for the purity of the sport. To those, I would say I have long been able to bet on sports in North Carolina prior to this because people, where there's a will, there's a way, or you bet with your friends or however it works. So now that we had a few states, we've had a few years to see what this looks like, and we've seen the evolution of what's going on with sports with name, image, likeness. Some people aren't liking what they're seeing. So what was your piece about? Let's talk about that. And why should states maybe reconsider who don't want a piece of this pie?
Yeah, well, that piece is called State Bans on Sports Betting Aren't Helping Anybody. That's over at Real Clear Politics, and it's republished on Zero Hedge here today. And, the basics of that piece are that Georgia just recently declined to join North Carolina in having a legal sports betting market. They were going to try and pass it by voter referendum, but the state legislature shut it down. And we still have Texas and California not participating in sports betting. And there is overwhelming evidence based on the revenues and analytics of sites like Bovada, an overseas unregulated sports betting site based in Costa Rica, where they will take cryptocurrency, they will take credit cards, they will maybe take your left foot if you bet on that, that those sites are gobbling up the market share and dominating. I mean dominated FanDuel and DraftKings. And I think that is by just sheer population numbers of California and Texas, where there is no legal betting market. So the numbers are getting rung up really, really big for sites like Bovada and a lot of their other, similar sites based overseas, where you can place all sorts of illicit bets and get into real big trouble financially outside of the regulated market.
Yeah, Cayman Islands actually has a couple. They have a couple of the really big ones that people would use, prior to the legal sports betting. And as shady as some of it sounds, it really it presented as something that was really polished and put together. Like if you check out these sites, these overseas sites, which obviously have lost a lot of share, it didn't look sketchy. It looked very professional, and they would pay you out, and because you had to have that confidence. So they built these big brands there. So it's clearly was possible in a state like California, like Texas. I guess I kind of understand they're a little different, but California, they've never met some way to get tax dollars out of you they've never wanted to do. So why is California not doing this?
I actually am kind of baffled by it. Really, California seems like the kind of anything goes place that would rush actually to have legal sports betting, as well as all sorts of other kinds of gambling. I mean, it's a state that seems to believe pretty strongly in what we would call vice, these sort of behaviors that we don't really condone of societally, but we want people to do them in the least harmful way possible and in the light of day, and try to block black markets from dominating these things. And so, California and Texas don't have these things. And, what you have is a lot of sort of B and C list celebrities being spokespeople for these overseas sites. I can't remember which one Ryan Seacrest does ads for, but that's kind of the dynamic you have. You have Charles Barkley doing stuff. I think it was for FanDuel. He's more well known through ESPN these days.
I do just full disclosure. I do endorse DraftKings, so people have probably heard the spots there, and that's the one that I like. So, but I just full disclosure since we're talking about this.
Yeah, and that's good to know. And most sports bettors are pretty well to do in terms of their income. They only spend about under $100 per month. And then you, of course, have this sort of 2 to 3% of people who are problem bettors, who are addicts to gambling. And those people have always existed, will always continue to be there. And so the sort of the debate that's being had across the states is legalization and regulation creating more addiction? And that evidence is incredibly unclear at this time. A lot of proponents of keeping sports betting illegal are looking at calls to addiction hotlines and Google searches for help with problem gambling. But those aren't really good indicators of if people actually are having a major problem or if they just suspect they might like gambling more than they wish they did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And, here's the thing, too. It's those people didn't just develop an addiction. So maybe some of the younger – I've seen some troubling stories with kids that they have a 18 or a 19-year-old that somehow stole like $500,000 out of his grandmother's accounts and then just blew it.
Mm.
So, yes, you're going to have those issues, but I would remind people that gambling's not new in the state of North Carolina. Of course, they had the machines where you could go, and that was a whole fight. But the state lottery for the kids, right, which I question whether the money gets there, that's been around for a minute. So it's not like it was a brand new thing. You know, Wyoming had no gambling where I grew up, except for the Indian casinos. They did no state lottery, no nothing the whole time I was there. I think we were the only state not to have anything.
And that should always be in air quotes, though. No gambling in air quotes, because there's, of course, always gambling occurring. In Georgia, the market for illegally placed sports bets last year was $4.8 billion flowing out of Georgia to overseas sites. And so it's just, we need to get real about, I get that folks don't like that this is now a world where you can pretty much just sit down on the couch and bet your life away in all sorts of different ways, rather than going to a brick-and-mortar casino. But this is reality. Even with just a VPN, if your state were to block access to these sites, like some other sites that are considered illicit get blocked in different states like Virginia, it takes just a couple of clicks to land yourself on these sites and do whatever you want. And so you have to provide people in your state the best possible option. Sites that regulate the use of credit cards, don't allow cryptocurrency, allow you to ban yourself from betting if you think that you have a problem. I mean, states like New Jersey, New York, they have these sort of provisions where you can put yourself on a no-go list, where all the legal betting sites will deny you the ability to create an account. But that, again, doesn't really solve the problem, which can't be solved, of overseas betting sites, which they can still get to.
Yeah, we got a minute left. I will tell you the one thing that I